after your phone call with Ukrainian President Zelensky today, do you plan to speak with Russia's President Putin in the near future?
I will be, yeah, I will be. We're having a very good dialogue. I settled 7 wars. The one that I thought would be maybe one of the easiest. You know that feeling? You think one thing is going to be easier, it turns out to be a little bit tougher.
Much tougher. President Trump working to secure that peace deal and now ramping up the pressure on European allies to stop buying Russian oil, funding the war in Ukraine. He says it's about $1 billion. It comes after Putin cozied up with President Xi and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un and 24 other leaders in China this week. 2 of America's top adversaries coming together against us. Let's bring in retired 4-star General Jack Keane. General, I was surprised the president said he's had good dialogue with Vladimir Putin. Putin's been stringing us along.
Well, I think he likely has had good dialogue with Putin, you know, in terms of the relationship itself, because, you know, Putin talks peace in those conversations, talks returning to a geopolitical relationship with the United States for mutual benefit, particularly in terms of our economies and going forward. I think he talks all of that. But he promises things that are going to take place, like a bilateral meeting followed by a trilateral meeting, bilateral Zelensky and Putin. But he doesn't follow through on it. He makes promises, but he doesn't keep them. And I think we're at a point now where we've got to recognize that we've got to push him in the direction of the peace process. He's not going to voluntarily do it. He's not going to go to a ceasefire, and he doesn't look like he's willing to make any major compromises that would make sense in terms of establishing a permanent peace agreement. And we're going to likely have to change his behavior and force him into it. Having the Europeans stop buying oil is a step in that direction. Slapping sanctions from the United States on anybody that's doing that, not just India, but also China, Venezuela and other countries, Turkey that's doing it. Makes no sense that a NATO ally continues to do it like the other Europeans. So, yeah, I think we're at that point now.
Absolutely.
Where we have to recognize that Putin is sort of playing us with his positive discussions with the president.
Yeah, you got to arm them up in order to bring peace. They have to understand it. That's the adversary we're dealing with. Just so people at home can see it, China spends $229 million on Russian oil, discount for them. India, $140 million. Now they're getting a 50% tariff for that. Hit Turkey, a NATO ally, $95 million. The European Union, $74, and Brazil, $21. They all should be getting secondary sanctions right away. So, especially after the scene we saw this week with Vladimir Putin and the Russian leader trying to describe a new world order. Your thoughts on what you witnessed with the 10,000 man parade in China?
Well, look I mean, we have been used to these adversarial countries in their own country having these very familiar choreographed, goose-stepping, robotic soldiers brandishing all the modern weapons that they have of war. And what is different about it is not the parade itself, is the fact that the symbology of those 3 adversarial countries coming together, the most significant geopolitical shift that has taken place between the Trump administration's first term and the Trump administration's second term, is what we witnessed there. And that is the collusion, the cooperation, and the coordination that 4 countries have had, 3 of them represented there, China, Russia, and obviously what has taken place with North Korea and Iran. That is the major geopolitical shift, and we have to recognize that this alliance is real, and we can see it manifested in Ukraine. They're all in on Russia succeeding in Ukraine. They know if Russia loses, they lose. That is the world, and they want to replace the United States and like-minded democracies in the world today of having major influence. They want to have their own sphere of influence in their regions, but work together also to change the global influence that the United States has in the world. Yeah. And that was the message that they were saying, and the president got the message. Yeah, I mean, he got it. He said, you're conspiring against us.
And that we got to do
message received.
Yep, bolster all our forces and our support around the European and the NATO nations, and make sure Japan and South Korea get more military support and offensive weaponry than they ever had before. There's going to do military exercises today. I think that's important. Something else I think is an issue, especially for you who care so much about our history. Today, the president will make it official. It's going to be back to the Department of War instead of the Department of Defense. Do you like this move?
Well, first, I'm less concerned about the name. I'm more concerned about what the Defense or the War Department stands for. And that is we have to be prepared to fight and win our nation's wars. That is job one. And the truth is, as we stand here today, given the atrophy that took place of the 9/11 wars, the kneecapping of the defense budgets under Biden, under Obama, and the flat defense budgets under Biden, we've got a lot of work to get to that status that we are absolutely prepared to win wars against our adversaries, particularly dealing with China and the grouping of these nations together. Why did we change from War Department to the Defense Department? You got to go back to the feelings that existed at post-World War II. Close to 100 million people killed as a result of the adversary nations. Everybody at the time had war ministries, war offices, or war departments. After World War II, because people wanted peace and stability and to deter war from happening, they moved to defense departments or ministries of defense. There's not a single prominent nation today has a war department. Why? Because they wanted to move away from the aggressive connotation that War Department had and the imperial nature of it. The adversaries who had war departments, Japan and Germany, were after conquest, and we're not after conquest. So that was the reason the Congress made the change, reflecting that thought process. What I'm concerned about, be prepared to fight and win our nation's wars, and we got to do a lot of work to get us back to that status.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.